Chidima had always carried herself as a gentle and respectful young woman. But that image shattered the night her mother-in-law, Funmilio, chose to humiliate her. After a minor dispute, Funmilio threw her out of the house, forcing her to spend the night outside without pity. Neighbors who passed by whispered in disbelief when they saw the new bride sitting on the veranda, trembling in the darkness. The shame cut deep into her heart, yet she stayed silent, refusing to argue back. Funmilio felt triumphant, convinced she had finally put the bride in her place. The very next morning, Chidima walked with unusual composure. Quietly, she went to a locksmith and ordered that every lock in the house be changed. No one guessed what she intended, but she moved with a calm determination. The truth was, the house was not Funmilio's at all. It was the inheritance her late father had left her, though she had never spoken of it. That painful night of disgrace gave her the courage to reclaim what was rightfully hers. When evening came, Funmilio returned from her outing, expecting to enter as usual. To her shock, her key no longer fit. She twisted and twisted, but the lock was completely new. Furious and confused, she banged on the door, shouting Chidima's name. Neighbors quickly gathered, drawn by the noise. They murmured among themselves, remembering how the proud mother-in-law had mocked the bride just the night before. Now the tables had turned. Chidima slowly opened the door, holding the new keys in her hand. Looking straight at her mother-in-law, she calmly declared that this was her father's house, her rightful home, and she would no longer tolerate disrespect. Funmilio's pride collapsed as the truth sank in. The neighbors shook their heads in amazement at the sudden reversal. For the first time, Funmilio had no power. That night, Chidima slept peacefully inside her father's home, while her mother-in-law bore the shame of being locked out. The same neighbors who once pitied her now admired her strength. What was meant to destroy her had instead made her unbreakable, and the entire community finally recognized where true strength lay. Inozi, too, was cast out by her mother-in-law Raisai during a stormy night. The rain poured heavily, soaking her clothes as she stood helpless in the cold. Thunder rumbled above while neighbors peeked from their windows, whispering about the cruelty they had just witnessed. Raisai smirked with satisfaction, sure she had reminded her son's wife of her place. Goi fought back tears, but deep within she knew the night would not end as Raisai expected. By morning, word of the incident spread across the neighborhood. People pitied the young wife, wondering how she would survive in such a hostile home. Yet Inozi held a secret her tormentor knew nothing about. Quietly, she called lawyer Ao, who had been managing her late father's estate. For months, crucial documents had been waiting to be revealed, and this cruel act became the moment to bring the truth to light. Later that day, Ao arrived at the house with a folder in hand. The family gathered curiously. Raisai crossed her arms, confident the lawyer had come to scold the bride for daring to resist. But the atmosphere shifted when Ao cleared his throat and began reading. The papers revealed that the very land on which the house stood had been willed to Goi by her father. Her name alone was on the deed, making her the rightful owner. Gasps filled the room as Raisai's proud expression dissolved into shock. Goi remained calm while everyone absorbed the revelation. She had endured long nights of insults and humiliation. Yet she had never spoken of her father's gift. Now the truth had spoken for her, and silence had turned into victory. Without raising her voice, she simply signaled the locksmith waiting outside. One by one, the locks were replaced, and the new keys placed into her hand. When Raisai returned later, ready to walk in as ruler of the house, she found herself locked out. She pounded on the door, shouting in disbelief, but neighbors only watched with quiet satisfaction. The same woman who had once dragged her daughter-in-law into the storm was now standing outside in the rain herself. That night, Goi finally slept peacefully inside her father's home. The storm had passed, not just in the sky, but in her life. Raisai's power was gone forever, and the whole community saw who truly belonged in that house. During another gathering, Zanab faced humiliation at the hands of her mother-in-law Adido. The family was enjoying laughter and conversation when Adido suddenly shoved Zanab outside and turned the key, leaving her stranded at the door. The relatives fell silent, embarrassed by the public disgrace. Some whispered, others looked away, but no one dared challenge the older woman. Zanab stood quietly in the cool evening air, heart aching, But she neither cried nor shouted. She carried knowledge no one else in that room understood. After a while, Zanab pulled out her phone and made a single call. Within the hour, a locksmith arrived with his tools. While the family inside pretended nothing had happened, Zanab calmly oversaw the replacement of every lock. With each new key fitted, her confidence grew. The house was hers in ways Adido would soon discover. When the locksmith handed her the fresh set of keys, Zanab thanked him and walked back to the door. This time, she entered not as an outsider, but as the true owner. Gasps rippled through the room as relatives watched her walk in with authority. Adido's face tightened, unable to grasp what had just occurred. Before anyone could question, Zanab stepped forward with quiet strength and revealed what she had kept hidden. The house, the very place Adido claimed as her own, had in fact been fully paid for by Zanab. Every debt cleared, every mortgage settled. Her name alone appeared on the property documents. The relatives exchanged stunned looks. Adido's pride crumbled in front of them all. Zanab did not shout or boast. She simply placed the keys on the table and reminded them that respect is not demanded. It is earned. Some relatives smiled quietly, realizing how wrong Adido had been. That night, the woman who had tried to disgrace her daughter-in-law stood humiliated, while Zanab reclaimed her place with calm dignity. Her silence had been her sharpest weapon, and her quiet revenge left the entire family speechless. From that moment, no one dared to challenge her again. On the night of Omada's wedding, Bose revealed her cruelty. The celebration had only just ended, laughter and music still echoing, when Bose suddenly ordered the new bride to leave the house. Guests gasped in shock as Omada, still in her wedding gown, stepped into the night. Neighbors peered from their windows, whispering in disbelief that such cruelty could happen on a bride's very first night. Omada stood outside, humiliated but unbroken. She did not beg, though the sting cut deep. She held on to a secret she had prepared long before her wedding day. While Bose celebrated, certain she had crushed her son's new wife, Omala waited patiently for her moment to strike back. The following morning, as the family gathered, Bose walked in with pride, carrying herself as though her authority was unquestionable. She smiled with confidence, convinced her power had been proven. But Omada soon stepped into the room, holding a small folder in her hands. Her voice calm yet steady. She placed the documents on the table, and the lawyer at her side stepped forward. Everyone leaned closer, eager to hear. The truth came out. Months before the wedding, Omadala had signed a private agreement with her husband, one that transferred the title of the mansion into her name. Every wall, every corner, every inch of the house was legally hers. Bose's grin vanished in an instant. Relatives gasped, stunned by the revelation. The very bride who had been thrown out now stood as the rightful owner of the home. The mood shifted sharply. Bose tried to object, but the papers bore official seals, leaving no doubt. The family, still in shock, realized Omadala had turned her disgrace into triumph. Without raising her voice or seeking vengeance, she had claimed control of the very home from which she was cast out. Later that day, when Bose attempted to enter as though nothing had changed, she discovered the locks replaced. For the first time, she was the one left outside, powerless. Neighbors who had mocked the bride the night before now stared in awe as the tables turned. That wedding night betrayal ended with Bose stranded outside, while Omada stepped through her own doors with poise, resilience, and dignity. At a family gathering, Hail Lima was humiliated by Emma Saad. The hall buzzed with chatter and laughter until Saad suddenly rose and mocked Hail Lima loudly, ridiculing her as powerless and inexperienced in front of relatives and neighbors. Some guests turned their faces away, embarrassed, while others whispered in hushed tones. Hail Lima's cheeks burned, but she kept her composure, hiding the fury that boiled inside. She knew this shame would not last forever. Afterward, she returned home quietly, reflecting on what had happened. She remembered the hidden gift her mother had given her months earlier. A respected market leader with a sharp mind for business, her mother had secretly purchased the family house and registered it under Hail Lima's name. Saad had no idea and believed she controlled everything. But Hail Lima knew it was time to claim what was rightfully hers. The next morning, she called a locksmith and had every lock in the home replaced. She worked quietly, ensuring no one noticed. Gate by gate, door by door, the locks were changed, and only she held the keys. By the time Saad returned, certain of her authority, everything had already shifted. Her keys failed to turn. She rattled doors, shouted, and demanded to be let in. Halima then appeared calmly behind the gate, holding the new keys. The neighbors and guests who once saw her as weak now watched in astonishment. Halima smiled softly, her composure showing she now held the power. Saad, once proud and domineering, now found herself begging for entry. Her earlier confidence had vanished. From a distance, Halima's mother watched with pride, knowing her daughter had learned to guard her home and her dignity. The community, having seen her shame and her victory, admired her wisdom and patience. That evening, Halima walked freely through her house, not the timid daughter-in-law people had underestimated, but a woman who had claimed her place. Saad had been taught a harsh lesson. Power shifts in an instant, and respect is earned, never demanded. The neighborhood would remember this day as the moment the market queen's daughter took back her rightful ground. That night, Aula was forced by her mother-in-law Kafiat to sleep outside. The cold, damp air cut through her thin shawl as she sat shivering on the porch. Relatives whispered in dismay at the cruelty, while Kafi sat inside proudly, convinced she had put her daughter-in-law in her place. Aula felt the sting of shame, but refused to weep or plead. Deep within, she knew this night did not define her destiny. As Kafi grew comfortable indoors, believing she had secured control, Aula quietly made a phone call. Within hours, a lawyer arrived carrying a briefcase. The entire family paused, curious about this unexpected visitor. Kafi smirked, assuming he was there to confirm her authority. Instead, he calmly revealed the truth. The documents showed that Abiola was not merely living in the home. She was, in fact, a legal co-owner of all the family's wealth. Every property, every asset, every part of the estate was equally hers. Arrangements had been secretly made months earlier to secure her rights. The room went silent as the weight of the revelation sank in. Kafi's face drained of color, her pride collapsing instantly. Abiola accepted the papers with calm grace, thanking the lawyer politely, already knowing what came next. Without delay, she called a locksmith to replace every lock in the house that very night. One by one, the old keys were rendered useless. By morning, the home was firmly in her control. When Kafi tried to enter her usual rooms, she found every lock had changed. She banged on doors, called out, and demanded answers, but Abiola appeared at the doorway holding the new keys. Family and neighbors who had witnessed the earlier cruelty now saw power completely reversed. Kafi, once the ruler of the household, stood helpless outside. Abiola moved through her home with quiet pride, her dignity intact, her shame turned into victory. That night she slept peacefully inside, while Kafi finally understood that her reign had ended. One busy morning, Fatima was insulted and thrown out by her mother-in-law. Amid the noise of the bustling house, the older woman shouted at her in front of everyone, calling her worthless and ordering her to leave immediately. Humiliated, Fatima stepped outside, her heart heavy as neighbors looked on, whispering at the cruelty they had just seen. Though shamed, she stayed composed, concealing the determination burning within. Once alone, she reflected on the resources she had carefully built over the years. Unknown to her tormentor, Fatima ran a thriving company and had been saving with a purpose. While her mother-in-law assumed she was powerless, Fatima quietly prepared her counter-move. She contacted her lawyer and arranged to purchase the house itself using her business funds, securing the property legally in her own name. By evening, everything was finalized. The property was hers, with documents signed and sealed beyond dispute. She immediately called a locksmith to change every lock in the house. Each key now belonged solely to her, giving her complete command over the house she had once been forced to abandon. Inside, relatives whispered among themselves, realizing something unusual had taken place, while Fatima stood quietly, a faint smile of triumph playing on her lips. Later that day, when her mile returned from the market, she expected to walk in as always. But the door wouldn't budge. She pulled at the handle, banged on the frame, and shouted for someone to let her in, only to realize the home she had once dominated was now entirely in Fatima's hands. Confused and furious, she stood outside helplessly, while neighbors peeked curiously at the unfolding drama. Meanwhile, Fatima moved confidently through her home, the new keys jingling in her palm. She didn't scream or humiliate her mile in return. She simply let reality speak louder than words. The house, once a place of insult and disgrace, now stood as a testament to her strength and independence. By nightfall, it was clear to everyone that Fatima's patience, intelligence, and hard work had won her the ultimate victory. Her Emma's control had dissolved, and the wife who had been dismissed as powerless had claimed her rightful place with dignity. Abani was shoved out of her own home by Emma Yetan. It happened during a heated family argument, when Yetan, fuming over a petty dispute, pushed her daughter-in-law into the yard. The cold wind cut against Abi's skin as she landed on the porch, humiliated in full view of relatives and neighbors. Some gasped, others whispered, but no one dared step forward. Yetan remained inside, arms folded, smirking as if she had successfully put Abani in her place. But instead of breaking down in tears, Abani drew a deep breath and resolved not to let anyone dictate her life. She quickly dialed her cousin, a trusted builder. Within hours he arrived with tools and supplies. Calmly, Abani explained her plan. Together they worked swiftly, replacing every lock on the doors, windows, and gates. By the time they were done, the old keys were useless. Only Abani held the new set. While Yetan still believed she controlled the household, Abani had quietly taken charge. Each step of the process turned her anger into determination. By late afternoon, the work was finished. Abani walked through every room, testing the locks with a smile of quiet triumph. Standing tall in the living room, she raised the keys and declared firmly, "This is my home now and always." The relatives who had witnessed her humiliation earlier stood frozen in disbelief. Yetan's smug grin faded the moment she realized she no longer had access or authority. Outside, neighbors murmured about Abani's courage, amazed by how she had turned weakness into power. With calm resolve, she had transformed the atmosphere of the home. That night, for the first time, Abani rested peacefully under her own roof, free of fear and disgrace. Yetan, left outside and powerless, faced her own humiliation. While the community admired the young woman's bravery, Abani had proven that true power lies in patience, wisdom, and courage. By reclaiming her space, she not only secured her home, but earned the respect of everyone around her. Amara too was humiliated by her Mile Kahind, who locked her out. It unfolded one busy afternoon as relatives gathered for a small celebration. Without warning, Kahind lashed out with cruel insults, declaring Amara worthless and ordering her to leave at once. Guests watched in shock as Amara stepped outside. Though the sun was warm, it suddenly felt icy on her skin. She swallowed her tears, refusing to break down in front of the crowd. Kahind, pleased with herself, smiled proudly, convinced she had put Amara in her place. But Amara remembered a secret her late father had safeguarded, a will that left her as the rightful owner of the family home. Not even her husband, let alone Kahind, knew about it. Determined to reclaim what was hers, she contacted her father's lawyer the very next morning. The lawyer arrived with official documents in hand, his calm authority instantly shifting the tense atmosphere. As relatives gathered curiously, he opened the envelope and began to read aloud. The room fell silent as he revealed that Amara's father had left her the house, the land, and all its belongings. The will was crystal clear and legally binding. Slowly, Kahind's smugness drained away, replaced by shock and disbelief. Relatives exchanged astonished looks. Yesterday's victim had become today's rightful heir. Remaining composed, Amara accepted the documents, then summoned a locksmith. Every door and gate was secured with new locks. Kahind's protests and demands meant nothing. The keys no longer responded to her. By afternoon, her power was gone. Humiliated before the same crowd she had once impressed, Kahind packed her belongings and left. Amara walked through her home with quiet pride, her dignity unshaken. Relatives and neighbors looked on in awe, witnessing how she had turned shame into triumph. The hidden will had transformed cruelty into defeat, proving that patience, intelligence, and courage always outlast arrogance. Sime too was cast out, told by Emma Dupe to sleep outside. It happened late at night after a small quarrel escalated into insults. In front of relatives, Dupe shouted that Sime had no place in the home and must leave at once. Visitors and neighbors stood stunned as Sime stepped into the cool night, her heart heavy yet her thoughts steady. She did not argue or cry. Instead, she held on to her belief that patience and preparation could change everything. Walking away, she remembered the careful arrangements she had made months before. With her own resources, she had secured a lawyer to finalize ownership documents and lined up a locksmith to act when the time was right. While Dupe believed her daughter-in-law was powerless, Sime had already set the stage for a quiet but decisive victory. By dawn, Sime returned, holding fresh keys and official ownership papers, legal proof that the house was hers. Dupe, who had spent the night savoring her so-called triumph, was still asleep, unaware her reign was over. Sime walked calmly through the rooms she had once been forced to abandon. The air that once carried fear and humiliation now felt filled with authority and peace. When Dupe finally woke and tried to enforce her dominance, shock awaited her. Her keys no longer fit the locks, and Sime's documents made it undeniable. She had no rights left. Relatives and neighbors who had witnessed the night's cruelty now stood astonished as the once feared matriarch found herself powerless outside. Sime never raised her voice or created a scene. She simply let the truth reveal itself. The house that had symbolized fear under Dupe's control was now Sime's haven, a symbol of patience, wisdom, and courage. By morning, Dupe's rule had ended completely. Sime had taken back her home with calm precision, turning disgrace into triumph overnight. From that day forward, no one underestimated her. Her strength had earned her admiration and respect from all who had witnessed the transformation. Thank you for watching until the end. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories. Goodbye.